Fantastic. Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the City Council meeting of October 21st, 2020 at 4 p.m., a virtual meeting. Temporary public comment email established for the City of Los Banos City Council meeting October 21st, 2020. Emails must be received by 4 p.m. The city has established a temporary email address citizens can use to email public comments on any agenda item, limited to 250 words or less. Any public comments received by October 21st, 2020, prior to 4 p.m. will be read aloud during the appropriate time and agenda item. The email address is cityclerk, one word, at losbanos.org. Public comment during a public hearing will be taken in real time via email. Once the public hearing is opened, the City Council will pause the meeting in order to receive emails directed at the public hearing up to 250 words and will read comments into the record after resuming the meeting. As time permits, please indicate that comments are for a particular public hearing by putting public hearing in the subject line of the email and the title of the public hearing. The council chambers are closed to the public. Those interested in viewing the City Council meeting can do so on the City of Los Banos website. That's www.youtube.com/watch V equals SC3 capital N capital Q 8 capital A 8 IU capital E and sign feature equals YOUTU and then .be. I'm sorry that's such a long email address, but if you go to our city website, it will give you that information. I don't expect you just to copy it down as fast as I could read it. Okay, so with that, I would like to call this meeting to order at 4:05 p.m. And Chief Breezy, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, let's go on to item 3. Roll call. City Clerk Maloney.
Faria,
Here.
Johnson Santos,
Here.
Jones,
Present.
Lewis,
Here.
Villalta,
Here. We do have a quorum. Consideration of approval of agenda. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Okay, go ahead, Mrs. Santos.
I make the motion to approve the agenda as stated.
Okay, do I have a second?
Mayor, I'll second that.
Okay, it's been motioned by Santos, second by Jones for the approval of the agenda. All in favor? Faria?
Yes.
Johnson Santos?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Villalta? Yes. Okay, presentation. Proclamation recognizing Pat Leonardo. And Larry, are you on the line with Pat?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much. Pat, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Well, it is such an honor to present this proclamation to such a deserving lady and a gracious one who has worked for so many years with the Vital in helping us with police activities throughout these many years. And so with this, I would like to read this proclamation recognizing Pat Leonardo. Whereas Pat Leonardo became a vital police volunteer on July 1st, 2005, and volunteered for 15 years until her retirement on September 16th, 2020. Pat Leonardo received many awards during her volunteer service, including being named Volunteer of the Year on March 4th, 2020. During her time serving as a vital volunteer, Pat Leonardo took part in many different community outreach activities, such as the Salute to Seniors functions, National Night Out events, Sober Graduation, and events, and many others. Pat Leonardo provided parade escort services for numerous processions and parades, provided traffic control and call-outs when needed. She also took part in many vital activities over the years and attended many training events. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the mayor and the city council members of the city of Los Banos do hereby commend Pat Leonardo for her many years of outstanding service and dedication to the community, and congratulate and wish her well on her retirement. Pat, being a member of Vital, I have to tell you that what I've observed in my time is just absolutely phenomenal from you and the members who have dedicated the service to the city of Los Banos. And I can't thank you enough for what you do. Understand completely the training that you had to go through in order to participate in Vital. And again, thank you so much. Is there anything?
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to say?
I want to thank you, Mayor and City Council. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
Well, you mean a lot to us, Pat. And again, thank you for everything. And I'd like to give you a round of applause for everything that you've done.
Thank you.
And my fellow city council members are just so appreciative of the time you spent and the money that you've saved our community. But that's not why you did it. You did it because you wanted to be part of our community, and we all wholeheartedly thank you. Chief, did you want to say anything?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with all of the things that you've said about she's been a great volunteer. We'll still have Larry with us, so sure we'll see her around. The kudos are well deserved. We're very proud of Pat, and look forward to seeing her in the future.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
so much.
you.
Okay, so with that, Pat, we will now conclude this part of our ceremony. But again, thank you so much and have a happy retirement.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Bye, Larry.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, let's go on to item 6, public forum. Members of the public may address the city council members on any item of public interest that is within the jurisdiction of the city council, which includes agenda and non-agenda items. No action will be taken on non-agenda items, and speakers are limited to a 5-minute presentation. Or excuse me, limited to 250 words or less, or if they're on camera, 5 minutes or less. By dropping it off at the utility payment box at the City Hall, 520 J Street, by mail or emailing cityclerk@losbanos.org. Comments received will be read into the record during the city council meeting. And Director Maloney, do we have any comments other than COVID-19, if there are any?
I have received no comments for tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Director Maloney. Is there anyone online who would like to comment on anything, the public forum? Not hearing anyone, I will now close the public forum. City Council Member Lewis, we can now see you. Thank you. Okay. Let's go on to item 7, consideration of approval of consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and voted on in one motion unless removed from the consent agenda by a city council member. And tonight we have Director Melanie.
Items on the consent agenda are as follows. Warrants numbers 224059 through 224252 in the amount of $1,217,786.32. City Council Resolution number 6274, approving closure of non-essential city offices on Thursday, December 24th, 2020, and Thursday, December 31st, 2020. City Council Resolution number 6275, accepting parcel map 2020-03, along with the dedications of a 10-foot public utility easement located east of parcel D and west of parcel E along East Pacheco Boulevard, State Highway 152, as shown in said parcel map for Ohel Bapez LLC. City Council Resolution number 6276, awarding the bid for the purchase of one new 2020-2021 model medium-duty utility truck with liftgate to Sanis Ford in the amount of $49,006.31, and authorizing the Public Works Director, City Engineer to issue the purchase order. And the items are to be approved as submitted.
Is there any city council member who would like to remove an item for discussion? I'm not hearing any. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Lewis.
Yes, go ahead, Councilmember Lewis.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Mayor. Okay, was that Mr. Faria who seconded that?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so I have a motion by Lewis and second by Faria for the approval of the consent agenda. Faria?
Yes.
Santos?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes,
Peralta? Yes. Mr. Jones, did I cut you off? Did you want to say something?
No, I'm good. I was going to second that, but Tom beat me to it, so we're good.
Okay. Thank you. All right, let's go on to item 10. Consideration of the City of Los Angeles membership with Peninsula Clean Energy by adoption of Joint Powers Agreement, JPA resolution, and introduction, first reading of required city choice aggregation CCA ordinance. And item 10A, City Council Resolution number 6272, requesting membership in the Peninsula Clean Energy Authority, authorizing the mayor to execute the Second amended Joint Powers Agreement and appointing the city's director on the board and an alternate director. And
Mr. Mayor, excuse me, I think you skipped 8. You went straight to 10.
Skipped 8 and 9.
oh my God, how did I do that? I am so sorry. I don't know why I went on to the. I switched pages. All right, so I'm going to backtrack and stop this. And presentation of financing plan for the new police station facilities project. Finance Director Williams. I am so sorry. We're on item 8.
That's okay. Thank you. I do have a presentation tonight in regards to the financing proposal for the police station. The chief is going to start off our presentation by discussing the current facilities that we have and why we need new facilities. So Gary, if you want to go ahead. Gary, we can't hear you. Your volume's extremely low.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. I can't tell you how pleased I am to speak briefly about this item. This is a very long time coming. We're really excited about this project. I want to say thank you to the city manager and the finance director for tolerating all these years. I'll stop there and we'll move on to the slideshow.
Sorry, Gary, we can still hardly hear you. It's not very clear.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, so can you all see the slide presentation?
Sorry, and now you have an echo.
I believe he has two microphones open.
Let me see, Gary. Let me switch back. The microphone on your computer and the microphone that you called in are both on.
Yeah, I've got, okay. Hold on one second.
It
Is
actually,
that better now? I've only got one mic going. Am I better?
it's just really low. But yes, it's
Yeah,
not
you're
echoing.
still going to,
I apologize.
okay,
I'll speak very loud. Is that a little bit better?
yes.
Okay. All right. So moving along with the slide presentation, as many of you know, we moved into the police department at 945 Fifth Street back in 1969. At that time, I couldn't tell you exactly how many employees we had, but I can tell you that in the early 90s, we had about 39 employees. Currently, we have 80 authorized employees. So you can tell there's a big jump. I suspect there was a much larger jump back from 1969. So we've been at 945 Fifth Street since 1969. In 1999, we purchased the Police Annex building, which is a two-story building directly across the street from City Hall. It houses our code enforcement division, our gang unit. It houses POW, Valley Crisis. It has a training room. It has some evidence storage. Needless to say, though, since 1999 and those 21 years, we've also outgrown that building. So the combination of the age of our main building at 945 Fifth Street and the size of the combination of those two buildings is we've just outgrown them. So today's item is very timely for the police department and moving forward with a new facility. No, we're good. Back in 1999, this is actually our third attempt at building a new facility. Back in 1999, there was an attempt by the chief at the time in collaboration with the county to build something downtown, basically on this footprint, the county building across the alley, and the old Gardner's building. They did a bunch of research, a needs assessment. They're going to have a multi-story parking facility in the area, and it just came out to be financially unreachable. So that project slipped away in time. Again, in 2008, the police chief at the time started the process of building a new facility in conjunction with the new courthouse construction. Originally, that was lined up and designated to go out towards the old junior college out in College Greens. That location was subsequently moved to the new courthouse's current location, where they have built a two-story facility. Our goal has always been to be somewhat of a campus complex idea, bringing the county staff, the police department staff, and the courthouse to one location where we can provide all of those service providers for the criminal justice community, the law enforcement community, all under one location, if you will. We're proud to say that we're moving forward with that idea tonight. The 2008 project, because of the recession, slowed and eventually came to a stop. And with tonight's presentation, we are again moving forward. We've already purchased a piece of land, as you know, which you've authorized. Thank you very much, by the way. Just west of the new courthouse on G Street. We've completed some preliminary design concept reviews, which you'll see on the next slide. Those are not what the building will look like. Those are draft present representations of what it could look like on that site. But we purchased approximately 3.8 acres earlier this year, just west of the courthouse. And with tonight's staff report and approval, we will move into phase 2 of the project, where we will begin what's called bridging documents, which will bridge our needs assessment with an actual architectural firm, where we will begin the actual design of the physical building of the new police department if this project is approved. I will stop and offer any questions if you have any. Otherwise, I just want to say thank you again. This is a project that's near and dear to my heart. I was involved in the 2008 project when it stopped, and it's disappointing but understandable. I think we're positioned tonight to move in the right direction. I think all of the stars have lined up, and I just want to say thank you again for considering this item. And Sonia, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, just to jump into financing, I wanted to go over a couple of items that we looked at before we came to the conclusions that we made in tonight's staff report. So the different options that we had were internal financing, which includes the Measure P funds, the Police Capital Improvement Funds, Measure H funds, and General Fund. And we looked at all fund balances that we had through the 2020 fiscal year. The balances that we'll be discussing tonight have not been audited, so they're still based on assumptions, but they shouldn't be that far off. Other options that we looked at were internal loans, and what that means is instead of going out and financing the project, we considered internal financing. This would cause less of an interest rate if the funds were available, and essentially we would just be paying ourselves back, so there wouldn't be any additional fees besides we do have to legally pay the fund's interest. However, the only viable funds would be enterprise funds, and that really didn't pan out. And even though the reserves in some of the enterprise funds are quite high, a lot of that funding is already earmarked for enterprise projects. And just to give you an example, the water fund estimated fund balance is $23 million. And you think, okay, we're only looking for 14. However, just in the 5-year CIP that we have over $12 million already budgeted, which would drop that down. And we have projects that haven't been programmed for financing yet. So we don't want to encumber those funds and take away from things that the enterprise funds may be able to do or may need to do with their money. Additionally, we looked at external financing. We looked at financing the entire loan through different options. We looked at issuing bonds. We looked at different USDA loan programs that were offered. These programs, either our population was too small or our population was too large. The one that we did qualify for was just a guarantee program, which meant that we would still have to have a commercial bank. We would still have to get the loan through a commercial bank, and USDA would just guarantee the loan. But we're not in a situation where we needed that, and it was a little bit more costly. The best option that we have found is with iBank, and at this time, we've discussed borrowing up to $20 million. The terms of the loan would be approximately 2.5% to 3%, depending on when we applied for the loan. Right now, our time frame is about January, which we'll talk about a little bit more. It would be a 30-year loan, and we would have one annual payment. So what we are looking at, the best option for the city is actually to combine internal financing with external financing. That being said, the entire project is estimated to cost $24 million. The internal financing, we would take funds that are available now in the various sources, funding sources, and we would use that money to pay some of the costs up front, and again to pay off some of the costs as we go. And then we would finance for the rest of it, which would be the $14 million. So right now what we're asking council to do tonight is to, I left off a number here on my slide, is to commit $3.5 million of the $4.5 million in Measure P. And again, this is Measure P just for the police department. This obviously doesn't take in anything that fire is doing. That wouldn't be appropriate. These funds are set aside for capital. As you know, there are also positions paid out of Measure P, but that doesn't affect this. There is an allocation or a building allocation set aside annually for this purpose. And so the funding is there, the funding is available. We are asking to leave about $1 million in that account, so it can be utilized for things other than the police station. But we are asking for you to commit $3.5 million out of Measure P to building the police station. Police capital improvement funds, or as most people know, these developer impact fees are set aside for this purpose as well. It is set aside to make payments to capital that developers have. So as developers build out areas in the city and it gets larger, it has an impact on certain facilities throughout the city, and one of those is police. And so we go through a whole study and we put in projects that will have an impact. One of the projects that we have listed is the police facility. Currently, we have, I left that number off my slide, so let me look it up. Oh, sorry, I lost my little. So impact fees at the end of 2020, we're estimating to have a little over $2.5 million. That is the project that we have in that impact fee study. So we are asking to set aside that money and commit it as well towards this amount. Measure H funds, we currently divide that into different categories. We have the police, which is 45%, dispatchers, which is 10%, and code enforcement, which is 5%. The fund balance, or the reserve from the last several years, so when this began, the first 3 months of 2019 and 2020, with those three departments combined, we have a little over $1.1 million, and we're asking to take $1 million of that and use that toward the funding for the police station as well. And of course, we're including police, dispatch, and code enforcement because they would all be housed over at the police station. And then finally, we do have in the general fund, currently in assigned funding, we have $900,000 set aside for this purpose. And we are asking to take $2.1 million out of the unrestricted general fund, add that with the assigned funding, and to commit a total of $3 million. That means our internal funding request would be $10 million, and our external funding needs would be $14 million. That's the loan I talked about that we would apply for with iBank. That would bring our total estimated project cost to $24 million. The loan amount of $14 million would have an interest rate of approximately 2.5%. The loan would be for 30 years. The annual payment is estimated to be just under $700,000. And over the 30 years, the $14 million would cost us a total of $21 million to borrow. The $700,000 annual payment will be made using Measure P funding. The financing timeline for iBank would be to turn in our application to them no later than January 2020. In March, iBank would take it to their board for approval. And after that, if it is approved, we have 6 months to execute the agreement. The timeframe looks like we can get all the closing docs and everything done and submit it by June 2020. And therefore, the funding would be available in August, which by this timeline you could see is when we would need the majority of the money. So right now, the project timeline, and again, this is just an estimate, we would need approximately $200,000 in the next couple months for design, another $350,000 between January and February for bridging documents, that should say, not building. And then in February and August, we would be working on procurement for another $150,000. All these amounts would be paid out of those internal funding sources that I just discussed. Then when we hit the large sum, the design, build, and construct is when we would have the funding available from iBank. So we're anticipating that that would happen around August of 2020. And as you can see from the last slide, the funding would be available by June. So we would be more than ready to have those additional fundings ready to go. And then the project is estimated to be completed no later than March 2023. And that's a total project cost, as I stated, of $24 million. And I know that was a quick overview. I did put a lot of details in the staff report. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Okay, questions, Mr. Faria?
No questions at this time. I'm sorry, I had to find my microphone, get my cursor to grab my microphone. No questions at this.
Okay, Mrs. Santos?
I have a question. Just make sure, and I know I imagine it probably be after this gets approved or whatnot. We will be consulting the committees about the funds that we were hoping to look into. Is that correct?
Yes, they would be included in each of the committee's budgets. They are well aware these are items that we've talked about continuously, so Measure P knows that the funding is needed for this purpose. Measure H, we've discussed it a little bit, but not in great detail. But yes, when we take the budgets to them, it will be brought up and it will require their approval.
Okay, thank you. Thank
Good
you, Mayor.
question, Santos. Mr. Jones?
No comments. I'm ready to go on this.
Okay, Mrs. Lewis?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I did speak with Sonia this afternoon in regards to Measure H funds, which cover police, dispatch, and code enforcement. And of the $1 million coming from that particular budgeted area, 60,000 of it would be coming from code enforcement. So I inquired as to whether or not we could keep that 60,000 out and leave it in the code enforcement budget, since that's such a high priority in our community. And I understand that the additional 60,000 could come from a fiscal stability fund, which Sonia didn't seem to have issue with. So I would like to make that proposal, is to hold back the $60,000 that comes out of the code enforcement budget, leave it within the code enforcement, and garner the rest of the money from the fiscal stability fund.
And
Sonia, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, Mrs. Lewis is correct. We did have that conversation earlier. Again, I just combined those three because they will all be housed at that police facility. Just combining police and dispatch, we have over $1 million. It's actually $1,090,155 without including code enforcement. And we do have that fiscal stability account that collects 5% or anything over 2.5 million. And I'm happy to say we have approximately 500,000 in there. So if we did need to pick it up, we would have no problem picking it up out of fiscal stability. There is the $1 million is in there without touching code enforcement, if that's the priority of the council.
Well, I certainly have no problem with that, and it is strong supporter of code enforcement. But also, I can't tell you how excited I am to have this project go forward. This project has been bantered about since 1999, and we hadn't been able to accomplish this, and now through and I'm not going to even say creative financing. I'm going to say financing due to the citizens of the city of Los Banos, with Measure P and Measure H, of which we would not, and I repeat, not been able to start construction on this project without those two measures. And it's a great credit goes out to the citizens of the city of Los Banos and to our staff for amassing this money after all these years, and this council for again, looking into the expenditures and making sure that the expenditures were correct, and allowing us to amass money where we have this money for 10 years worth of capital projects, of which the police station is one of them. And so it is just a huge, huge credit to citizens of Los Banos, the staff of the city of Los Banos, and the city council for what you've done to make this work. Without those three entities, this would not have been possible. And just a final question, Sonia, without Measure P and Measure H, could we accomplish this?
No, in fact, Measure P is the sole source to pay off the annual financing. So no, we wouldn't be able to afford it without those two items.
Wow, absolutely wonderful. So citizens, be proud. You're going to have a police station you can be proud of, and in the employment of our officers, they're going to have a facility that they can call home. That will be a home. So with that, I'm going to ask. Are there any other questions from council?
Mr. Mayor, I just have a couple comments, if I may.
Go ahead, Alex.
You are absolutely right, Mr. Mayor. This is a significant project for the community. This will be a significant civic building for the community that I think the community will be proud of. As we move forward with the project, we'll be engaging the public at least a couple times along the way, so keep an eye out for that. And I would say, thank you to the leadership of the council for your support in moving this project forward. Reiterate, yes, thank you to the community for supporting public safety. Without the support of the community and the council, we really wouldn't be in the position right now. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Mrs. Lewis, would you make the recommendation, please, if you'd like, with the addendum?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll be happy to do that. I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 66277.
No. 6277.
I'm sorry, resolution number 6277, with the addition of keeping $60,000 of the $1 million from Measure H in the code enforcement budget.
And Mayor, I will second
Mayor,
that.
before we make a second.
Just 1 minute. I have two people that want to talk. Let's go to Mrs. Santos, and then I'm going to go to Mr. Jones.
Well, we can probably go back to Mr. Jones because I was just going to second that, but I was also going to thank staff for the telling of the history of why we need this building, because I think that's something that the residents should be aware of. So, but you can go ahead and go to Mr. Jones.
Mr. Jones, go ahead.
Well, I'll second that, but yeah, I seen Ms. Santos wanted to interject and say something, so I was just gonna make sure we paused before we finalized it to give her the opportunity to say what she needed to. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go. Let's see. Mrs. Lewis she'd like to make a motion to approve 6277, and it's seconded by Mrs. Santos, who
Yes.
wants it first. Okay. And roll call, Mr. Faria?
Yes.
Mrs. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
And Villalta, yes. Chief, you've got your building. Sonia, you've got your work cut out for you to make sure we still have the money every year. And the city of Los Banos is going to be the recipient of another beautiful civic facility. So thank you, citizens of Los Banos. Thank you to the staff of the city of Los Banos. And thank you to this city council for making this happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any parting words, Chief?
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you again for the opportunity and helping push this item through. It's going to be a great project for this community. And if I can add one more thank you, that's to my good friend and soon to be retired Public Works Director, Mark Fashion. He has been with me for the past few months, really the head of our needs assessment process. And I just want to thank him. If you could see my smile, you wouldn't believe it. So I'll leave it with thank you. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, and thank you, Director Fashion.
So Chief, turn on your camera so we can see the smile. No, I don't think he's going to go for it.
All right. let's go on to item 9. Residential and commercial garbage, recyclable material, and organic waste collection services. Item 9A, City Council Resolution number 6278, declaring its intention to award a franchise agreement to Mid-Valley Disposal for the residential and commercial garbage, recyclable material, and organic waste collection services contractor. And who are we going to? Director Fachin?
Thank you very much, Mayor and council members. The goal of this whole staff report is to have the City Council adopt Resolution 6278 that declares its intent of award of a franchise agreement with Mid-Valley Disposal for all those items that we mentioned. This is in conformance with Section 4.18 of the RFP that says that we will post a notice of intent on the website, which we will if it's approved tonight. So that's the intent of this staff report tonight. The other, and we do anticipate, if everything gets approved, to come back in the next meeting, November 4th, with the actual signed agreement from Mid-Valley to just execute it. It won't be as big a packet; it'll just be the agreement at that point. But in order to go over, this is the meeting to go over what's in the agreement, some of the history of it. So I have brought back Richard Tago Irwin. He's the principal of R3, front and center on this negotiations, with working with staff very hard. And I'd like him to present his PowerPoint on this to explain this. But the intent is to, the declaration of intent to award a franchise is what this staff report will finish at. That's what we're trying to do today. Thank you, Richard. Go ahead.
All right. How are you folks doing this afternoon? I thought when you skipped number 10 initially or 9 initially, you're going to put it on consent, and we're going to have a pretty short go of this. But anyway, I've got some slides to run through. The staff report is pretty thorough, and you do have probably the full franchise agreement in front of you, which is well over 100 pages. And I apologize for the complexity of it, but it is a fairly complex document to go forward over the next 10 years. So we could go to the next slide. And as Mark had mentioned, we're asking just for adopt a resolution of intent to award. That's just following the process that was laid out in the RFP process. We really wanted to follow that to the T. We anticipate coming back November 4th, I believe, for the actual award of franchise agreement. We can go to the next slide. So just a little bit of the prior history and actions. Your current agreement with the Republic is set to expire June 30th of 2021. The city has gone through an RFP process with the issue of the RFP April 1st of this year. You did receive 6 proposals, May 27th. They were evaluated, shortlisted, and then we interviewed 3 proposers. Of the 3, the top 3, Mid-Valley was ranked the highest from the evaluation committee, and that was kind of unanimously ranked across all evaluators. We came before the council August 19th and asked for permission to negotiate the final franchise terms and conditions with Mid-Valley, and that's what's in front of you tonight. Next slide. So the key points of the new agreement, it is a 10-year base term with a mutual option to extend for an additional 5-year term, and mutual meaning both the city and the hauler have to agree to extend it. The city can't unilaterally extend it, and nor can Mid-Valley. They cannot unilaterally extend it. So it's a mutual extension. The primary focus of the new agreement is really legislative compliance, is to put all the programs the city needs to be in compliance with all the legislative requirements, including, for example, bundled commercial recycling organic services. So all of your commercial multifamily accounts will have recycling. They will have organics from the beginning of the contract. That will go a long ways towards getting the city in compliance with SB 1826 and SB 1383. You will have new containers from the start. They also will be compliant with the regulatory requirements in terms of color coding and the labeling. I think some of you did see those last month when Mid-Valley showed you some examples. The city will be involved in the final selection of the containers and the labeling. That will be both for residential carts as well as the commercial containers. You'll have new collection trucks from the beginning of the contract as well. And I think they also, Mid-Valley did show those to the city last month. Substantial diversion from landfill guarantees. Very different from your prior contract. Mid-Valley is required to divert organics, recyclables from the disposal system. The whole contract is predicated on them meeting their requirements, and that's really how it will work. There are penalties if they don't meet those requirements. You have contamination reporting requirements to comply with regulatory requirements as well. So again, the recyclables are clean, organics are clean. And the other piece that's real interesting is what Cal Recycle is doing is they're also looking at making sure what is trash is trash. You're not supposed to have recyclables or organics in the trash can. So all those things are looked at. The rate adjustment for Mid-Valley's compensation is they would receive 80% of the CPI with a total 3.5% rate cap on their services. Okay. So that's a pretty darn good limitation on your cost controls for what you're going to be paying your contractor in the future. And as required by the RRP and franchise agreement, they will offer employment to all displaced workers. Next slide. As I mentioned, they will be providing all new collection trucks and collection vehicles. They will provide 4 residential bulky waste collections, including e-waste collection at the curb at no cost. It's a schedule. You call up as a resident, you call up and schedule it. They come out to the curb and pick it up. And additionally, they will provide now 4 community cleanup days, which is an increase over 2 over the prior piece. They will provide 2,000 cubic yards of mulch or 1,000 cubic yards of compost to the city. Again, this is a regulatory requirement. It's basically to help the whole purchase of the organics to be put back into the system. And one thing that did distinguish them from the other vendors is they're going to provide the city with 2 full-time dedicated recycling coordinators. They feel it's important that they have, in essence, boots on the ground working with their customers to make sure the recycling and organics programs are effective and work well. Next slide. They are committed to a fully staffed customer service office and corporation yard located within the city. That is requirement of the contract. In the customer services, so they will have walk-in customers if necessary. They will have fully staffed there. What's really important that you're not getting now, I think, is their whole data gathering and collection program starts at the point of collection in vehicles. So everything is linked together. There are RDIF tags on the actual collection carts. They're scanned, they're picked up by the truck, so the truck knows when it's picked up, where it was at, the time it was picked up. There's also cameras videotaping all of this as well. That's loaded up on the driver's tablets, which is inside the truck, and that in turn is loaded up into their customer service database. So they have basically an A to Z tracking of every account, every day, every collection, so they know what's going on. So if there are problems with missed collections or anything else, it'll be very well documented. The driver camera system also records how the drivers are operating the vehicles, if they're doing sudden starts or stops. So all that is recorded. So I think you have a very good accountability going forward with how their route operations are going. One thing that they are going to be doing, they will be processing the organic materials at their facility, at their organics facility, because it starts with food waste will be started from day one of the new contract compliance piece. The part that was actually negotiated since August was they will be processing the city's recyclables at their material recovery facilities. So it will not be going through the authority. When we looked at the cost implications of this, it was a substantially lower cost than running it through the authority as they have been doing now. Next slide. In terms of sustainability support, they are required to divert between 40 to 55% of every ton that they collect, and it is in the contract. They are going to work with the city to get to a 75% Cal Recycle diversion. It's a very high diversion number. They will provide support to the city and to the county and the regional agency for the edible food recovery program that all jurisdictions in California now have to be involved in. Again, the 2 dedicated sustainability staff have a dedicated website to your city and your services. They do have a program for annual recycling awards to give out recycling awards to the best recyclers within the community. They will be conducting commercial on-site waste audits before the contract, through the contract term, to make sure that the services that your commercial businesses are really receiving the correct level of services. The garbage cart, garbage can is the right size, recycling organics the right size. And it all fits together in one packet. They will be providing educational support to public schools and they will be providing support and attendance at your city-sponsored events. So they have a pretty large group of sustainability programs that are going to be helping the city going forward. Next slide. In terms of the city's management controls, which we do feel is pretty darn important because it's a large contract over the term that the city has the ability to actively manage the contract. One important part is we substantially increased the performance bond from the current $100,000 to $1 million, which is pretty standard. So your current performance bond is very low for industry standards. Hopefully that would never have to happen. We did add a $5 million pollution liability insurance, so they're covered because they're using their facilities. We do have termination clauses if they're determined to be a habitual violator. If they keep just breaking the rules in and out every day, then you can't terminate them for that. There are 3 performance reviews over the term that they pay for, and we strongly suggest that you exercise that right to do performance reviews every several years. And particularly prior to any kind of an extension term, you really need to do a review to make sure that they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. There are administrative charges for performance-related issues, i.e. missed collections, overweight vehicles, those types of things. And what's really going to be important for the city is substantial new reporting requirements on all the tonnages, the diversion, the route operations, and legislative compliance, covered generators. All of that's now covered in your reporting requirements. Next slide.
I have a question, please.
Sure.
My question is about the habitual violations. What would those include?
If they continue to miss collections and they did not correct it, and you kept calling them on it, and you kept assessing, administrative charges, and they still continue to have problems, that would be considered a habitual violator.
Okay.
What we've seen in other contracts is overweight vehicles. They run overweight vehicles and they don't correct the problem. That's grounds for termination.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Next slide. In terms of sort of the impact on ratepayers, and this is a little bit more complicated because the city pays your contractor for collection. The city sets the rates it charges to your actual customers. So when we look at doing a kind of comparative basis for what you're paying now for collection costs, disposal costs, processing costs, compared to what will be occurring next year under Mid-Valley, it's about a $400,000 lower overall cost than what you're currently paying. So we think that you're going to be able to, at worst case, have basically no rate increase, possibly a small rate decrease for the residential customers. The commercial customers will have a free level of base recycling organics. So part of their new bill going forward includes recycling organics, where right now they pay additional for that. And again, there's an ability to downsize garbage carts and bins to reduce and or control the bills, which has been a problem in the past. So if you have, for example, a commercial business that's on 4 cubic yards of trash now, once they start recycling organics, they can reduce their volume of trash. That will reduce their bill. And that's something that the sustainability coordinators will be working with the business to right size those accounts. It's really important that your business community is involved in that selection of their services. They get it right the first time. And then also from a rate standpoint, they are held to an 80% CPI with a 3.5% maximum annual increase. Over the last 10 years, the CPI has run about 2.66%. So we think it's a pretty safe bet they're going to be under the 3.5%.
So Richard,
I'm sorry.
I before we move on, so this was really important to me that if we took on new services, that we weren't going to increase the rates on our ratepayers, especially for commercial, because what I've discovered in all these years is that Las Vegas sets a standard and no one follows. And I just want to be sure that with people selecting the right product and the right type of can, that there's not going to be an increase to their bill for doing more of the right thing with the recycling of the organics, and other jurisdictions not doing anything and just waiting this out till 2022. And I still believe that with COVID, there's going to be some change, and they're going to wait till 2024 to institute this. And I don't want our ratepayers being subjected to additional costs far before they have to do this, or have to be. This has to be mandatory.
I mean, as of today and what we've been told from Cal Recycle, they are not backing off the requirements. So your contract going forward, starting July 1st, if they keep the requirements where they are, your customers are covered. If they change those requirements, which would be considered a change in law, I think the city would have the ability to go back and have a discussion with MVD about possibly reducing the cost for the bundled services. So, right now, going forward, they would have options for the recycling and the organics as part of their garbage bill. And when we're doing comparisons, it's pretty darn compatible with where you are now. Ultimately, because the city establishes the rates, it's how the city allocates its internal costs for street sweeping and admin and those types of things into the rate base.
Yes, I understand that. I understand that. But I thought it was 2022 when these went into effect.
It's actually the 1826, which is the mandatory organics, has already been in effect. What happens in 2022 is the penalties start. So the 1826, which is the mandatory commercial organics, has been basically been in law since 2016 is one of the issues. 1383, the new legislation, it really puts the penalties associated with non-compliance in place. And the penalties can occur until 2025 unless the city does absolutely nothing. So, we're just urging the city to at least take the initial steps to get the programs set up in place.
Yeah, I understand that. But my gripe has always been. Yes. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, Mayor, Mid-Valley handles the organics and the recyclables and the green waste in a lump sum. It's bundled. So how they deal with it this way, it's such a small portion of it. It's actually a good way to do it. I believe, and I haven't asked them, but even if the small amount of organics is taken out, their rate isn't going to change. So I think they're giving us the rate that they need to process at their facility. Am I right, Richard?
Yeah, I think the other way to look at it is their cost for processing recyclables is lower than the authority's cost for disposing of this trash. So the volume stays the same. It's either going to go in recycling at a lower cost than it would be if it's disposed.
Okay. All right. Well,
Mike, if we dispose the organics, excuse me, Mayor, if we dispose the organics as a tipping fee, it's higher than what Mid-Valley is going to charge us to take it to their facility in the recycle and green waste, which in the future we have to do anyway, but it's cheaper to do it that way than to pay the tipping fee.
No. That's perfectly clear to me. I'm just worried about subjecting our citizens to, and especially commercial, to subject them to requirements far before everyone else has to do this, of which they have neglected over these years, because we have cities that don't even do recyclables in this day and age. And it's always been my concern that the city of Los Banos, the city of Merced, and parts of Merced County are the only ones that are falling in line with this, and other cities are not. And so I'm just trying to make sure that our citizens get the best deal, the best bang for their buck. And if we're going to do the right thing, that's good. But us being the leaders and subjecting our citizens to higher rates is something else. And so, thank you for that explanation. I'll move on.
One other thing that to bring up just briefly is this reflects the current tipping rates that are being charged, and there's a current tipping fee study being done. So any savings in that study is passed on through MVD to the city. So there might be a minor change in downward in the cost to the citizens if those tipping rates change downward and balance out the way we're hoping they do. Just to let you know.
Okay. Well, City Council members Jones, Faria, and Lewis, please watch out for this. I've recommended the tipping fee study. The tipping fee study has taken place. They've approved the money. And please, make sure you continue to monitor that. And also that our commercial customers are not subjected to higher rates far before, they have to be, this goes into effect. And like I said, doing the right thing is one thing. We all want to do that, but in the process, we all need to fall in line when this happens and not have people skirt the law, because Los Banos has never done that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor, before we move forward.
Yes, Mrs. Lewis.
Yes. On the estimated cost of impact, it's showing here that there may be approximately $400,000 savings on what we're being charged now on our overall rate. Well, if this is the case, will any of this be passed on to our customers for lower rates going forward? Can anybody answer that?
Let me take it, Richard.
Yeah, I'll start on that one. So what you have is very similar to what you have now with Republic. The city pays for collection, disposal, and processing. Going forward, you're going to have that same piece. When we did the comparison of the two, with the projected cost for Mid-Valley, we're about $400,000 less than you're paying now. The city, in turn, takes those monies, and Sonia can probably help out on this one, and uses those monies, puts in the allocated costs for street sweeping and the rest of the solid waste division staff and billing. That's what ultimately goes into your customer bill. So assuming that the city's costs don't increase, one should be able to guess that, yes, there should be a rate reduction by that same amount of money. The other piece that is occurring this next year is because of the city's closed landfill, that will be part of your rate piece going forward as well. You've been collecting money for that in the past. We understand there's been enough money set aside so there could potentially be a reduction of what has to be collected to the closed landfill as well. So what we're suggesting is between now and March, the city take a look at its rate structure and then set the rates going forward to the customer.
Councilperson Lewis, we will be, the staff should be bringing forward a 218 process, regardless of whether it goes up or down, because it's how it's allocated to residential versus commercial. But if you just look at all things being the same right now, you're probably looking at, we have over 11,200 customers in residential. Residential, you can kind of look at it and estimate it could be up to a 3% decrease in the rate that's charged them. That really can't be specified until the 218 process is done. But the capital for the closure of the landfill has been collected, and we have enough. We do have 30 years of maintenance on that closure, which is only about $40,000 a year. So that's a lot less than we've been collecting to close it. So it looks very positive that at least from the residential side. I think the commercial, there's a lot of different cans and different options. It's kind of hard to compare without a 218. But it looks like the residential would, at the very worst, stay the same. But yes, those rates would be passed on. When you do the 218 process, you take into account the $400,000 lower for the cost of collection, and you take into account that we already have the money to close the landfill. You take those kind of items into account. So it should be a very positive 218 process, I believe.
In terms of additional estimated costs to the city or revenue to the city, per the RFP, Mid-Valley is required to reimburse the city within 30 days of execution of the contract, $150,000 for the cost of this procurement. That covers staff costs, consultants costs to run the process. In addition, they are required to pay the city road impact fee, an AB 939 fee, and administrative fees, and those total up to about $900,000, almost $1 million per year. Those will be offset against the city's internal costs. So again, the city does the billing, they collect the revenue, so that what they pay back to Mid-Valley for their collection and processing, they will be deducting those monies from what they pay. So it's very similar to what you're doing now. So again, there's no real big changes on how you're administering the financial side of the contract. And I think we'll go to the next slide, and I think that. So again, what we're asking tonight is just to adopt a resolution of intent to award, so an intent to award can be issued, and then bring it back November 4th with the final approval of the franchise agreement. On that final approval of the franchise agreement, there's a couple of exhibits in the draft, in the agreement you have in front of you that we're still working through with Mid-Valley. It's basically to update their implementation schedule because we've got about a 2-month lag time between when we thought we were going to have it done and when it's done now. We want to make sure all the dates are covered correctly, and that will be all done and brought back to you in 2 weeks.
Okay, Richard, is that the end of your presentation?
That's it. Yeah.
Thank you. Do I have any questions from council? Mr. Faria? Okay, I see you shaking your head. Okay, I'm good. Okay, Mrs. Santos?
Just a brief statement. I know there's been a lot of talk around this item, and I want our residents to know that I believe, as of right now, it seems like this company does offer some interesting features, and I think that's something that definitely, I think that definitely will show through for this company. So, but yeah, no further questions, but I did want to at least bring that out there. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Santos. Mr. Jones?
No questions.
Thank you. Mrs. Lewis?
Well, I think overall this contract is going to be positive for the city of Los Banos. Each council member was invited to view their trucks. The truck that I had been speaking about in past council meetings was exactly what I had been describing, and it really made me happy to see that we weren't going to have the old-fashioned arm reaching out trucks bringing the trash cans up in the air and dumping things, that it was on a chain conveyor belt and everything would be smoothly emptied into the hopper of the trash truck. And the mere fact that this company has a way of tracking each trash can, whether it's picked up, what's in it, the whole 9 yards, will help us in compliance with all the state regulations that have come forward to comply with. So I want to thank Richard for working on this contract, and I'm looking forward to the new business coming forward to Los Banos. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. And I also have no further questions, and very excited to be part of this. And so with that, I would like to, does staff have any further comments? Okay, not hearing any. So with that, I would call for a motion to approve City Council Resolution number 6278 as read by title.
Mayor, Councilman Faria, if it'd be all right.
Go ahead.
I move to adopt City Council Resolution number 6278, declaring its intention to award franchise agreement to Mid-Valley Disposal for the residential, commercial garbage, recyclable material, and organic waste collection services contractor.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Mayor, I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I have a motion by Faria and second by Jones for the approval of 6278. Mr. Faria?
Yes.
Mr. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
Villalta, yes. Thank you. Well, congratulations, Mid-Valley. Any parting words, Richard?
Thank you very much, and I've really enjoyed working with the city, and your staff has been wonderful to work with, and I'm glad that Mark's going to be around for another couple of years for us.
Okay, I won't ask Mark for a comment. All right, let's go on to item 10. Consideration of the City of Los Banos membership in a Peninsula Clean Energy by adoption of Joint Powers Agreement, JPA, resolution and introduction, first reading of required community choice aggregation CCA ordinance. Item 10A, City Council Resolution number 6272, requesting membership in a Peninsula Clean Energy Authority, authorizing the mayor to execute the second amended joint powers agreement and appointing the city's director on the board and an alternate director. And item 10B, ordinance number 1187, authorizing the implementation of the Community Choice Aggregation Program in the city of Los Banos by and through Peninsula Clean Energy Authority. And this is a second reading and adoption. And we are going to go to whom?
Me, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, go ahead, Director Allen. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. So we have a brief PowerPoint presentation for you tonight. All right, we're just going to dive right into it. Next slide, please. Just as you may recall, back at the last City Council meeting on October 7th, the City Council took the action of receiving a presentation from staff and deferred consideration of resolution number 6272 to today's date, October 21st, and then waived the first reading and introduced by title ordinance number 1187. At the October 7th meeting, staff went through pretty thoroughly the consideration for the membership with Peninsula Clean Energy, as well as the joint powers agreement, and as well as the ordinance. So I will not go through that as thoroughly today. Today, I just want to briefly just recap what was spoken about on October 7th, what was presented, and then be able to answer any questions. I do want to highlight that this is definitely not a new project. We've been working on investigating community choice aggregation for the city of Los Banos since September of 2019. Back in 2019, Peninsula Clean Energy was wrapping up, actually launching the Solar Right project, and they were invited to come and present to the city council. And so we have been, since that date, staff was directed to investigate whether community choice aggregation would be a good choice for the city of Los Banos. And we've been studying that and analyzing the options for the city since that time. So about a year now. Next slide. I do want to highlight the city's goals as well. Our goals are set within the general plan. And within our general plan, we have goals and policies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in accordance with our general plan guiding policies. They're to improve air quality and to promote public health, safety, and Los Banos' environmental quality, and to assume leadership in efforts to reduce toxic air pollutants and ozone-depleting compounds, which we believe that this membership with Peninsula Clean Energy and moving towards a community choice aggregation program would be able to help us achieve those goals. It would also secure sufficient low-cost clean sources of electricity to meet our regulatory mandates. And those are mandates that I had gone over previously, like SB 32, that are mandated to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by the state of California. And then it also seems to be a good fit with Peninsula Clean Energy in that we can match their complementary winter, which their winter they have their peak. And we are typically a low user in the winter. And then in the summer, we have peak lows. And then San Mateo County and their cities typically have lower loads. So we can help manage our capacity and costs with that relationship. Next slide. As a part of the analysis and staff's role in reviewing and making sure that not only Peninsula Clean Energy was a good fit for the city, but also that community choice aggregation would be a good program for the city to be a part of, our city attorney reviewed the amended JPA agreement and membership with Peninsula Clean Energy. The legal documents for city council approval were prepared by our city attorney, which includes the resolution and ordinance. And then we had questions, just general questions that we were able to answer. And in the past 2 weeks, we've also been answering questions that have come up by council members or the general public. We do have a frequently asked questions on our website that we were able to launch, which is linked on the city's website at losbanos.org. And I'm going to go over that in a couple slides, but let's go to the next slide. I want to talk about the program. This is one of the benefits of being a part of Peninsula Clean Energy. The benefits to the community is not only that they would have a choice in who the electric generation program would be, which company that would be from, but they also have programs and incentives that get passed on to the customer. Some of those programs are transportation, and so they have incentives for new and used electric vehicles, electric bikes, and electric charging stations for workplaces, multifamily dwelling units, and also for municipal cities and jurisdictions, those locations. For buildings, they have incentives for low-income home upgrades. They have for electric, and this is not only for low income, it's for all residents. They have electric heat pump water heaters, incentives for that, and technical assistance for jurisdictions that choose to adopt a multi-fuel or all-electric building codes for new construction. They have resilience programs, which are free portable batteries for low-income, medically vulnerable residents, and they also have monetary incentives to install solar and storage. And then in addition, the city, municipal governments are also eligible for specific programs for our facility. So if the city does choose to move forward with Peninsula Clean Energy, we would be eligible for programs to provide efficiency for city facilities. We could use solar plus storage program to eliminate or reduce the use of backup diesel generators. And we could use also the solar and plus storage for new and existing facilities. So examples of this could be our new police station, which the financing of that just got approved tonight. And so we could have the ability to be able to have a more efficient facility. And we can also use that program towards our existing facilities, such as the community center. We will be developing additional programs to meet specific needs in Los Banos, and those would be made available to all member jurisdictions. And Peninsula Clean Energy's strategic plan is to target 20% of all program funding for low-income and underserved communities. And I just want to stress that Peninsula Clean Energy strategic plan is how they're governed and how their programs work. We would just be a member of that Joint Powers Authority, and Peninsula Clean Energy does not govern how the city of Los Banos operates. And our strategic plan, which is within our general plan and any of the goals and guidelines that the city council has set in place. And then this process would include community outreach. So any programs that are developed further programs, those would have further community outreach to see what the community's needs are specific to Los Banos. And then those programs would be made available to all member jurisdictions within the Joint Powers Authority. Next slide. Just also wanted to recap on the community outreach that's taken place. The goal of this was to educate the community about community choice aggregation, also community choice energy. Those phrases are used interchangeably. We wanted to provide a frequently asked questions section. So we launched a web page at losbanoschoolenergy.org, which is linked to the city's website. We wanted to be able to provide answers, but we also wanted to receive feedback. So we do have a contact page as a part of that website where we want to hear feedback, and we want to hear further questions from the residents, from businesses, because this is, can be seen as a new thing in California, although community choice aggregation is not new. There's already 21 is new to our residents and our businesses, and we wanted to be able to provide education and information on what this means and the choices that are going to be provided to our community. So we do have resources available also on that website. We have all of the staff reports and packets from previous city council meetings and all of those PowerPoint presentations. We have the technical study that was done back in June. And really anything that, we try to pull together all of the resources that could help educate and really for that resident or business owner that wanted to dig in deeper for more information, they would have it readily available in one spot. Also within that website, we describe the program and its benefits, and we describe how it works, and also info about Peninsula Clean Energy, and then it's linked to Peninsula Clean Energy's website to find out some more information. So we wanted to, like I said, educate folks as much as possible. And let's go with the next slide. We also did outreach on our social media platforms. We used the city's Facebook pages as well as Instagram, Twitter, and like I said, we also posted on the city's website and linked to the city's website, the website that was launched for Community Choice Energy. And so this is a graphic that we've used on the post. We've done 4 posts, and on an average of our posts, we reach about 2,500 people just on the Peninsula Clean Energy posts, what I'll call them, the Community Choice Energy posts. And on an average between those 4 posts, we do see that we have about 389 engagements. What that means is that folks are clicking on the post or clicking on the link and checking out the information that's been provided to them. So that's actually pretty great, considering, I mean, the city, we're constantly trying to give information to our residents, and that's in line with really typical activity on our social media posts, at least from the Community and Economic Development Department's page, although the other departments have been great as well in helping share those posts. So next slide. But the social media outreach and the outreach that we've done so far, and which I want to highlight, we've encouraged in all of those posts to receive feedback from the community. We've received a lot of likes and some wows, which is encouraging. We have not received any, sad faces or mad faces on any of those social media posts, and we have not received any negative comments or negative feedback. So pretty encouraging, and what we're seeing is that, I think that the residents are excited possibly about a different choice and another alternative to having another electric provider. But I do also want to highlight the community workshop. So we're not going to just stop at what we've done so far. If the City Council decides to move forward with a membership with Peninsula Clean Energy, we would be holding community workshops. And this is actually a photo from a park and rec workshop, probably one of our most well-attended workshops. So I'm going to take some pointers from Joe Heim and see if we can encourage more folks to come out to workshops. We love to see when the community gets involved, and we want to hear from them. So our goal is to educate the community. If the city decides to move forward, if the city council decides to move forward, we would be working with Peninsula Clean Energy staff in holding community workshops so we can educate our community on what their choices will be. We want to ensure that the community understands that they have an option to choose. They are not required to stay with Peninsula Clean Energy. They have an opt-out, and they have a choice at any time. And in addition to that, prior to launch, it is mandated for the 60 days prior to launch. So if we launch in January of 2022, we would be sending out mailers 60 days before that launch to the residents and to the businesses in the city of Los Banos, and then 60 days after. And there's no charge opt-out of the program, and those letters would be provided in English and in Spanish, and they would be done so that everybody would be educated and would be able to understand the options that are before them. Next slide. So should the council decide to move forward tonight, then tomorrow, Peninsula Clean Energy Board would adopt a resolution approving an amended JPA agreement. Their board meeting is scheduled for tomorrow. And then on November 19th, the Los Banos board member and alternate would be sworn in as new Peninsula Clean Board members, Clean Energy Board members. And then on December 17th, the updated implementation plan would be approved by the Peninsula Clean Energy Board and submitted to the California Public Utilities Commission by the end of the year. So the deadline is to have that by the end of the year. It takes a year to launch. So 2021 would give us the ability to do lots of community outreach, educate our community on what is to come, and then the launch would not happen until January 2022. So with that concludes the presentation. I do want to state the recommendation that is before the City Council tonight. So first, staff is asking that the City Council consider adopting resolution number 6272, requesting membership in the Peninsula Clean Energy Authority, authorizing the mayor to execute the second amended joint powers agreement, and appointing the city's director on the board and the alternate director. I apologize, I didn't include a slide specifically for choosing the board member and then the alternate, but staff is recommending three options for the council's consideration on how that could be structured. So first could be that the director could be the mayor and the alternate could be the mayor pro tem. Second option, and keep in mind that as a part of the governance of the Joint Powers Authority, the Joint Powers Agreement, a staff member can be the alternate. So with that being said, staff is also, as the second option, recommending that the city's director be the mayor, and then the alternate would be the city manager, and then the third option could be the mayor, and the alternate could be the community and economic development director. So those are just some options for the council to consider with that resolution. And then the second action tonight would be to waive the second reading and adopt ordinance number 1187, authorizing the implementation of a community choice aggregation program in the city of Los Banos by and through the Peninsula Clean Energy Authority. And that concludes my presentation. We have the CEO of Peninsula Clean Energy, Jan Pepper, on the line, as well as Sean Marshall, also to answer any questions.
Hi, Jan. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Mike. And I also would like, Mayor, I would also like to note that we have one of our board members, Carlos Romero, from the city of East Palo Alto, on the line as well.
Hi, Carlos.
Answer any questions.
And Mike is just fine, Jan.
Okay. With all due respect.
No problem. No problem. All right. Well, let's go to Jan or Carlos or Sean. Do you have any additional comments to add to what Stacy has already presented?
I don't. I think Stacy's done an excellent job. And so thank you for all your work and your good work, Stacy.
I agree. I agree. And I will tell you that that I think everyone is waiting with bated breath to see what Los Banos does. and in the county to see if they want to join Peninsula Clean Energy. And I think Los Banos is the only one that stepped to the plate and is ready to make a move. So I think after this is implemented, or during the implementation process, I think you're going to have other communities within Merced County knocking at your door. So I'm proud that Los Banos is bringing this to the table first. So council members, Mr. Freya, do you have any suggestions or comments?
Just comment that I think this is a good idea, and looking forward to saving our residents some money and offering some extra options on these programs.
Okay, Mrs. Santos?
Thank you. Yes, well, I won't be on council when this becomes due if it is the case, but I would really love to see what we can do with this. So thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Jones?
Yeah, I like this program. I'm really curious to see how this turns out, especially with people with current solar on their homes that's paid off, or that might be in a PPA program where it credits back a 1-to-1 ratio. I think that'll be a little bit of a surprise for some of our residents with solar that's owned outright. So it'll be a good surprise for them.
Okay, Mrs. Lewis?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a question. As Stacy indicated, residents have 60 days to opt out of the program once it goes into effect. And as it stands right now, what's being offered is a 5% savings on a utility bill for a customer. But what I'd like to know, what happens if you have more than 50% of the residents opting out of the program? How does this affect the funding and the options to the city of Los Banos?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember. We would basically we project out or forecast how much additional electricity, how much additional power we need to contract for our residents and businesses. And so if there were 50% of the residents opting out, then we would just procure less power on behalf of the city. I'd have to say that has never been the experience of any of the community choice energy programs that have launched. Our current opt-out rate is about 2.5%. So if 50% opted out, that would be quite a surprise. I think the highest number that any CCA has experienced is more around 10%.
Okay, and does that affect any of the services? And the 50% was a wild guess. I'm just throwing that out there. But if that were the case, would that affect the services that your company offers to the city of Los Banos, as far as grants to put in the electric chargers for cars? I know that the governor has passed some pretty stringent rules for cars going forward for the future, but within that, people who had fossil fuel cars are not required to get rid of them, which, I'm not seeing a majority of the people doing that here in Los Banos. So I'm just kind of wondering if you had that unusual case of 50% or more people opting out, would that affect the type of grants, the type of money that your company offers to Los Banos as you've offered to the cities in the Bay Area?
No, that would not make any effect.
Okay.
And actually, we're not a company. We're a government agency. We're a joint powers agency. So, we're not a for-profit company like PG&E. We are a government agency and not-for-profit agency.
So all the more reason to be concerned. All right. Thank you.
Okay, and I'd like to invite our council member Romero, who left another meeting, to come here to to share your experience as being part of Peninsula Clean Energy, if you could, Carlos.
Sure. Actually, thank you very much for allowing me to speak for just a brief moment. I know we had an opportunity to talk to your city manager several meetings ago. I can certainly state that the cities, all of the cities in the county of San Mateo, as well as the county itself, on the board, have always had in mind the interests of the users, of the folks who are actually using energy and electricity, and have always put equity and fairness of both the application of our programs as well as how we price energy at the forefront. We understand this is a double bottom line. We want to provide energy that is cheaper than that of the investor-owned utilities, and we want to provide energy that is green, and ultimately, for all the generations to come, will make a difference in terms of how we live and survive in the future. I think I'll close by saying that the fact that we do have a board of directors of elected officials who clearly have to be responsive to our constituents, right, makes us a board that is willing to listen to community concerns, and where possible, which happens a lot actually, through our community advisory bodies, implement programs that indeed benefit the respective communities that are in that 21 agency JPA. And with any luck, we would love to welcome you on board, given kind of the democratic running of what is a public utility, or a quasi-public utility, this JPA. So we're really excited that Los Banos is considering becoming a member, and really do believe that this is a very viable way to both green our economy, but at the same time also provide cheaper electricity to low-income folks, working-class people, people who could use that 5% benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos, for the explanation.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a rebut, please.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Romero, for your comments. You know, I just took an average bill of $300 a month on utility costs, and the 5% savings would be $15. East Palo Alto, East Menlo Park are not the same demographics that they were 25, 30 years ago. Most of the people who live there long-term have sold out. My sister had a house on Hollyburn Avenue back in the 60s that they bought for $10,000. That house sold this year for over $150 million. So it was just a small 900 square foot house. So things have changed significantly. And again, you know, I understand the push in California to become green, but philosophy for what you're doing in the San Mateo County area, and how the thinking is with the community up there, is a slight bit different than what happens here. And I'm not saying that this should go forward or not go forward. I'm just saying how we look at life in the Central Valley is different than how you look at it in the Bay Area. What the mandates are coming down from the state, we will all have to comply at some time. But certainly, based on the income level of the people that we have in our community, I don't want them to be forced to have to buy electric vehicles to comply with a state mandate when they can get by with what they have now. They're very costly, and a lot of people in our community can't afford those vehicles. People who live in San Mateo County, it's a different thing. And I'm not saying that you don't have low-income people there in your community, but we have a larger community in that respect here in Los Banos. And I have to consider what they're able to afford versus what the people in your county and in your city are able to afford. So that's one of the big drawbacks that I have with this program is I'm not quite sure that I'm hoping that through the education, people will truly understand what they're getting into, and that 5%, $15 savings on your monthly bill versus, being pushed to buy electric vehicles or do things that they can't afford to do now, will become a mandate for them. And that's how state organizations run. They give you a carrot up front, but the stick comes later. So I just wanted to say that. I'm sure I'm the only one that is voicing this opinion here at this council regarding this program, but that's my concern for the people who live in the city of Los Banos. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the time.
Thank you.
May I just take 45 seconds to very trenchant point, Councilwoman Lewis, well taken. Just
go ahead.
I'm sorry. East Palo Alto has a median income of $58,000 a year. The median income for the county is $117,000, I believe. When we were thinking about joining this, we had some of the same questions that you did. And actually, over the last 3 years that we have been on the board, 4 years that I've been on the board, actually, Peninsula Clean Energy has actually crafted programs specifically for low-income communities. We're not absorbing a lot of electric cars, but we are beginning to absorb the hybrid car. So we came up with a subsidy program for used hybrid vehicles, understanding that our community might not be able to purchase new electric vehicles. Innovative. No one else has done that before. It was done because coastside communities, East Palo Alto, Eastern Menlo Park said, look, and also certain other parts of the mid-county required a different approach to the type of program. So I'm just saying we are flexible. Very important points that you make. I think we are possibly more reflective of your community than other parts of San Mateo County, but we're making this work selectively. But very, very good points. Thank you for bringing it up, Councilman.
Mayor, if I may I add one point?
Go ahead.
Thank you. It's Sean Marshall from Clean Energy. I also think it just bears repeating that no program that is offered through Peninsula Clean Energy is forced upon any customer at any time. All of these programs are optional and voluntary for the customers of PCE. So there will be no requirement to buy an electric vehicle or do any such thing. So I just think it bears repeating that the programs that are for our customers are entirely optional at the discretion of the customer. Thank you.
Right, and there are a variety of programs. It's not electric vehicles.
Correct. That's right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Any other questions from council? Any other questions from staff? Staff, any comments? Alex?
I had to unmute myself. No, Mayor, no comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Patron, Mark, anything?
No, thank you.
Okay, Stacy, any additional comments?
No, if the council would like me to repeat the options as a part of the resolution, I'd be happy to do that. I apologize that I didn't include that in the slide. So if you need help with that, that would be no problem. And I just want to thank Peninsula Clean Energy for being readily available for all of the questions that we've had over the past entire year. They've educated city staff, and we've done our own investigation and interviewed other community choice programs, other CPAs throughout California, and Peninsula Clean Energy was definitely very great to work with. So I appreciate all their help in this process.
Okay, so Stacy, stay on the line for a minute. So in the approval or not of resolution number 6272, do we name someone or is that a separate action?
So tonight, as a part of that resolution, we would like the council to name who the director would be, and then the alternate director.
Okay. All right. So council members, I'll throw it out to you. who'd be interested in it? And these would be virtual meetings, Jan, right now?
Yes, everything's virtual now.
And what time are these meetings and when?
They're on the fourth Thursday of the month at 6:30 p.m. So everyone's welcome to attend virtually tomorrow night as well. And usually we have, it's been our tradition to have a staff retreat in September that we hold on a Saturday. So the September meeting is not on the Thursday evening, it's on the Saturday of that same week.
Okay.
Jan, for clarification, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Post-COVID, so after folks are able to join meetings in person, will there be an availability to still join virtually?
I would hope so. So I hope we can keep this virtual thing going past COVID because we found so much more public participation by having things virtual. But yes.
Okay. So who would like to volunteer to be included in Resolution 6272?
Mr. Mayor, I think Stacy was asking for a position rather than an individual, like the mayor and the city manager or the mayor and the mayor pro tem.
Is that correct, Stacy? Do you want a position?
Yes, so staff's recommendation is to go that route. It would just be simplest, considering that, you know, that the makeup of the council can change and changes every 2 years with an election. So staff is recommending the mayor and so three options, the mayor and mayor pro tem. The second option would be the mayor and the city manager as the alternate. Third option would be the mayor and the community economic development director.
Okay, so I would attend tomorrow night's meeting if that's the case. Is that correct?
If you can.
Yeah. Oh no, I that's not a problem. I just want to make sure that we have a continuum here, and that's kind of what I was looking for with you know the current council. But yes. So okay, so I will bring forth then that the mayor and the mayor pro tem be appointed as the city's director on the board and the alternate director for right now, the mayor and the mayor pro tem. That would be my recommendation to approve City Council Resolution number 6272, requesting membership in a Peninsula Clean Energy Authority, authorizing the mayor to execute the second amended joint powers agreement and appointing the mayor and the mayor pro tem as the city's director on the board and the alternate director. Do I have a second for that motion?
Mr. Mayor, before you move forward with the second, who are you appointing as the alternate? Is it the economic, is it Stacy or is it the city manager?
No, the mayor pro tem.
No, that's the alternate, but wasn't there a second alternate, Stacy? No? Okay.
No.
Sorry.
Stacy, can you go back over the options again, please?
Sure. So first option could be the mayor and mayor pro tem. Second option could be the mayor and the city manager. Third option could be the mayor and the community economic development director. And keep in mind, you know, technically there's a fourth option. It could be the mayor and another city council member as the alternate, or, you know, the makeup can be various different ways. City staff just felt it would be simpler with the three options.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to have the mayor as the primary and have the city manager as the alternate. Just at the very least, when seats change from every couple of years, we at least have somebody in-house that has all the facts that can forward over.
Yeah, I would acquiesce to that. I would change my motion to that, and I would agree with yours. That's not a problem for me. So why don't you?
Mr. Mayor, was yours a motion or was it just a stated recommendation?
No, mine was a motion, but I will acquiesce to to Mr. Jones and with the mayor and the city manager. It's no problem for me. I was going to make it simple, but this works out well, and I like his thinking, so I would go with that. So I would second Mr. Jones's motion, and including 6272 is read by title, Mr. Jones?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion by Jones, and we have a second by Villalta for the approval of City Council Resolution number 6272 with the appointment of the mayor as the primary and the city manager as the secondary. Alex is still muted, so he's okay with that. And so
Who was the second, Mayor?
I'm the second. I'm going to go with Jones's motion, and I'll be the second. All right, Faria?
Yes.
Santos?
I will go with the direction of the council, but I'd personally prefer to be mayor and then another city council member, but I will go with the discretion of the council. So if that is the council's wish. I'm sorry?
Is that yes?
Yes, that'll be.
Thank you, Mrs. Santos. Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Okay, Mrs. Lewis?
No.
Okay, and Villalta is yes. Motion carries 4-1. Thank you, and I will be at your meeting tomorrow night. Would you please send me an invitation with the proper Zoom or whatever you use and the agenda?
Mayor?
Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
Mayor, I'm sorry, did Councilmember Faria have a vote on that?
Yes,
I didn't hear that one. He did. Okay, thank you for clarification.
Yeah, he's nodding. Correct, Mr. Faria? Okay.
Yes and yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Right. So we have a vote of 4-1. Okay? And motion passes. Okay, let's go on to item B, ordinance number 1187, authorizing the implementation of the Community Choice Aggregation Program in the city of Los Banos by and through Peninsula Clean Energy Authority. And Mr. Jones, would you make the motion, please?
Yes, Mayor. I'd like to adopt resolution or ordinance number 1187.
No, sorry, not adopt. It says you're going to waive the second.
I'm sorry, waive the second reading. And we're introducing, right?
No, it's just the waiving of the second reading. We've already done the introduction.
Okay, Mayor, I'd like to waive the second reading of ordinance number 1187.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been motioned by Jones for the waiving of the second reading of ordinance number 1187 and a second by Mrs. Santos. Mr. Faria?
Yes.
Mrs. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
And Villalta is yes. Now you're going to move for the adoption, Mr. Jones.
Mayor, I'd like to adopt ordinance number 1187 as read by title.
Okay, Mrs. Santos.
Yes, I mean second.
Okay, it's been motioned by Jones and second by Santos for the adoption of 1187. Mr. Faria.
Yes.
Mrs. Santos.
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Mrs. Lewis.
No.
Okay, and Villalta is a yes, and so motion carries. Thank you all. Mr. Vaughn, are we done with this? I saw an item C on there, but that doesn't, there's nothing else. Are we done?
No, I just wanted to mention to the city clerk that I believe PCE needs copies of both that resolution and that ordinance as soon as possible, hopefully before their meeting tomorrow.
If you or the Community Economic Development Director would send it to me now, I'll work on it because I'm going to be out of the office for a good part of the day tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
So Jan, just to be clear, so the mayor's position is the one that's going to be installed with the PCE board, not the name of the mayor, just the mayor's position, and the alternate will be the city manager. Is that correct?
I think it will be you as the individual, but I don't know. I would have to check with our county council on what the specific is.
Okay,
But come tomorrow, you will be seated as a board member at the November board meeting.
All right.
Because the P board still needs to vote on it tomorrow, but we'd love to have you there tomorrow.
All right. But what I'm getting at is, you know, in the coming months, depending upon when the election is certified, there'll be a new mayor. And so,
Right. Yeah, I think the way you've adopted it in your city makes sense, so that if the person in that position changes, then you don't have to redo the ordinance or the resolution because you've designated who the person is. I'm not sure how it works for us, but I'm sure our attorney knows how to do that. I'm not expert at this.
not a problem. Not a problem. Just want to make sure we've got everything covered. Mr. Vaughn, I see you clicked in. Anything?
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem at all. So,
all right.
I think you just go ahead and move forward.
Okay. So, Alex, if you're available, please join us tomorrow, or else I will be here for sure. Okay. Oh, Jan, send the announcement to both of us.
Okay.
All right.
We are very excited to have you as part of this.
And we're excited about this program and offering another alternative for our citizens, and then also the incentives that could possibly offer to the citizens of Los Banos. And thank you all three for joining us, Carlos, Jan, and Sean. Really appreciate having you here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go on to appointment of commissioners to the following positions. Airport Advisory Commission, 1 vacancy, and I am bringing forth the name of Jerry Blevins. That would be my my motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay, I have a motion by Belalta, second by Faria, for the appointment of Jerry Blevins, expiring December 31st, 2021. Mr. Faria?
Yes.
Mrs. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
And Belalta, yes. Let's go on to item B, Economic Development Advisory Commission, 1 vacancy, expiring December 31st, 2021. And I am bringing forth the name of Joyce Ortega for appointment. And do I have a second?
Yes, Mayor. I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Belalta, second by Jones. Mr. Faria?
Yes.
Mrs. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
Belalta is a yes. And let's go on to item C, Tree Commission, 1 vacancy, expiring December 31st, 2021. And I am bringing forth the name of Jean Lee. Do I have a second?
I'll second
I'll
that.
second. I'm
Okay.
sorry, Your Honor.
Mr. Santos first. Okay, so motion by Belalta, second by Mrs. Santos for the appointment of Jean Lee to the Tree Commission, expiring December 31st, 2021. Mr. Faria?
Yes.
Mrs. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
And Belalta is a yes, and thank you to staff members for helping with the selection, and also the rotating of the city council members who work on these commissions. So it's not just the mayor who is bringing forth the name. The the mayor brings forth the appointment based on the conglomerate decision of the panel members who were there interviewing. And thank you so much, staff, and thank you so much, council members, for the assist with this. Okay, let's go on to item 12, discussion regarding future city council meeting format. And we're going to our city manager.
Okay, I think I unmuted myself. Thumbs up if folks can hear me. All right. So thank you, Mayor. As the council's aware, over the last several months, we've been meeting using this online meeting platform, really in an attempt to limit public gatherings and limit the spread of COVID-19. I think as we've progressed through the pandemic, this online format has been fairly efficient. I think tonight's meeting ran very well, but the staff's looking for direction from the council regarding future council meetings. And we have a few options if there's a desire to change from the online platform, or we can continue meeting on the online platform, have meetings in the chambers where we would observe social distancing requirements, potentially require face coverings of attendees. The other option is to continue using this online platform, or there's a potential for some sort of hybrid, continuing to use the online platform. If some council members would like to continue to use the online platform, we could potentially come up with an option like that. Continue to provide members of the community the ability to email in comments. So really, this agenda item, we're looking for direction from the council on meeting format for future meetings. We are still in the midst of the pandemic, but we did want some input and direction from the council to gauge your desire on the format to see if we stick with what we're doing or if we wanted to start meeting in person in the chambers. So just in terms of what other agencies in the county are doing, the county is meeting in person and has been since the beginning of the pandemic. Gustine is live streaming, similar to what we have been doing. No public in attendance. Atwater is in person, reduced attendees following social distancing guidelines. Merced also in person, reduced attendance and following social distancing guidelines. Dos Palos, I believe, it might have been earlier this week, had their first in-person meeting in the last several months. Livingston, really unclear on what they were. I hadn't heard back. I think they may be in person. We're switching to in-person. And then again, of course, Los Banos, we've been using this online platform. So cities in the county have moved, it appears, to in-person meetings, but again, following those social distancing requirements and guidance. So with that, Mayor, that's all I have. Again, looking for some direction from the council on how you'd like to proceed. That's all, Mayor, I have. And available for questions, of course.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for the presentation and for the background information. And so city council members, I'm going to open it up to you. I've been talking to Alex about this subject, and and together we kind of collaborated to bring this to the council. And again, Alex, thank you for all the background information. I appreciate it. So I want to hear from council members of what you'd like to do. So I'll open it up for discussion.
Mayor?
Lewis, Tom, did you want to go first?
Sure.
Go ahead, Tom.
I'm either way, virtual or in person. I don't like the idea of a hybrid. So it's either we're all in person or we're all virtual. That's just my preference.
Okay, but you're okay with the in-person meeting with the proper PPE?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Okay, anyone else want to comment?
Councilmember Lewis, Mr. Mayor, At this particular time, with the examples that our city managers brought up of the cities on the east side of the county, the stats that we get daily show that whatever they're doing is not working. At this particular time, I'm not in favor of going back into the chambers at this time. I think these virtual meetings are working okay, and it keeps council safe and it keeps our staff safe. At the minimum that I would go for is if the council wanted to go back in the chambers. I certainly don't feel comfortable, so I would have to be one of the hybrid people. And
Okay.
that's my statement.
Thank you. Mrs. Santos?
I think the online meetings are working out well, but I would be, to be honest with you, I wouldn't mind. I would like to go back into the council chambers if we could with our social distancing measures in place. So that's my
Okay. Mr. Jones?
Mayor, I think I've already made it very clear to you where I stand, especially on the PPP or PPE and making that a requirement. So if you want to go back to the chambers, no problem, but you know where I stand.
Okay, and that is the no mask, is that correct?
No mask, no face shields.
Okay, thank you. And I also want to get back in person to attend meetings, and but again, with the proper PPE, I would love to come back again. I mean, this format is okay, but it just doesn't it doesn't work for the type of communication I think that we basically need in a council meeting. So you know, we have Mr. Faria who would like to do one or the other. We have Mrs. Lewis who does not want to meet. She would be one who would not like to meet in the council chambers. Mrs. Santos is okay, and Mr. Jones would like to meet, but without the proper PPE.
Mayor, might I suggest perhaps our next meeting be online as well, and the last meeting, which I suppose would be the last meeting for us, would be in the chambers, if everyone would be amicable to that?
Well, you know, I think we just have, you know, too many opinions right now, and it's you know, if like I said, if it were up to me, I would like to have it back in the council chambers with PPE, but that doesn't look like it's going to work. And the hybrid would work, but Mr. Faria, how do you feel about that? Are you just totally against the hybrid?
If the hybrid were necessary, with the pleasure of the council, I would acquiesce to that.
Okay. All right. Mrs. Santos?
Hybrid would be fine with me.
You would what?
I was saying that hybrid would be fine with me.
Okay, so we have three who would work with the hybrid. We have one that will not attend, and then one without PPE. And the hybrid won't work without the PPE. So what's the pleasure of the council? We have three that want to meet with the proper procedures and two that did not. I don't. Yes.
Perhaps for everyone's safety, this next meeting, we also meet online. And then the meeting after that, we can check in again, see how everyone's feeling.
Well, we are close to another color reduction in the county if things hold. So is everyone okay with continuing the discussion to the next council meeting? The first one in November, and then we'll come up with a final recommendation if we can.
I'm good with that.
Okay. Mrs. Lewis, you okay with that?
Could you state your suggestion again, Mr. Mayor?
My suggestion is that we just put this back on November 4th and see if there are any changes in the county with any type of direction, and then maybe we can come together a little bit better then.
I'm okay with that, but certainly, you know, here we are in a situation where The Center for Disease Control is asking people to wear masks. In the state of California, it's the same thing. We have people on council who are various ages and have various medical conditions one way or another. And I don't feel that it's appropriate to put anybody in jeopardy to have a meeting, especially when a meeting's been working okay. So that's my position on it. And as Mr. Jones doesn't want to wear PPE, then I'm going to be one who will definitely not come to a meeting where everybody's not adhering to the rules. So I'm just letting you know that right up front, Mr. Mayor, and to our city manager.
Okay, well, I have to tell you that we passed a resolution. And within that resolution, it talks about the proper procedures and the PPE. So this council would have to rescind that resolution in order to get rid of the PPE. And so the PPE is any way you look at it is going to be mandatory. And so if it comes to it, we're going to have to wear that unless we decide to rescind that resolution.
Well,
So
again, if we look at our stats, we have a lot of people in the age category of 18 to 35 who are carrying the disease, but the most people who are dying are 65 and older. So I just think it's inappropriate that we do not consider everybody's health and safety on this commission, on this council, as well as our staff. So that's just my position. And I'm not telling anybody how to behave or how to do it. I can only say what I will do. And that's my stake on it, and I have that right.
I'm not saying, I'm saying that, my vote would be that if we do this, it's going to be with the proper PPE. Okay. I want that statement made perfectly clear. And so that's why I'm saying, let's go with Mrs. Santos's direction. Let's delay this to the next meeting. Let's see what else the county has in place. And maybe we're at another color. Maybe we are at a different stage. I don't know, but I'm willing to give it one more meeting. And at the November meeting, then we'll make a decision to find out if we're going to do all, none, or a hybrid, and go from there.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, you're okay with that?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Mr. Faria is okay. Mr. Santos is okay. Mr. Jones, are you okay with one more meeting on virtual before we make a decision? Sure. Thank you. All right, Alex, you have your direction. Place this agenda item on for the November, is it 4th? Is it November 4th?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay. Place this agenda item back on for November 4th, and then at that time, we'll make a final decision. Thank you, Alex, for the background.
Oh, of course. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. All right. Let's go on to item 13, consideration of council member request regarding traffic calming measures and speed cushion policy and procedures. Mrs. Lewis. Mrs. Lewis?
I was looking for another portion of my packet, which I seemed to miss. I think I left it in another room. Anyway, as we all know that there was an accident back in September on West I Street, a fatal accident where a resident lost her life due to high speed driving of a person under the influence of alcohol. We all received the information, and it went out on social media by the police department. With our current, the way our current ordinance is written for speed cushions in the city of Los Banos, there are some, I think it's a total of roughly about 18 different portions of the ordinance that street residents, people who live on a particular street asking for the speed cushions have to meet. And if any one of those is not met, then the application is automatically denied. There are two streets that I can think of in the city of Los Banos. West I is one of them, and Stonewood is another one, where they were built under the old guidelines back in the 80s and the early 90s, where these homes were facing collectors. And to no fault of the residents, when this ordinance came forward, arterials and collectors were automatically taken out of the equation for applying for speed cushions. Also, in our current ordinance, it requires a 70% participation of the people on a street to want to have the speed cushions, and 100% of the property owners where the speed cushion is going to be placed in front of their property to agree. I went to look at Stockton's ordinance, which is online, and they only require a 50+1% of people to agree to have speed cushions, and they only require 10 people to sign an application before the city starts working with the residents in the neighborhood in regards to possibly having speed cushions. So, in short, what I'm asking for is to bring back this ordinance for reconsideration so that collectors, I don't know if we have any arterials in town, because arterials usually come off of highways, and by the time you get into town on Pacheco, the speed limit there is 35 miles an hour all the way through town, which is the same as the southern part of West I, but the northern part of West I is 30 miles an hour. You know, not as many residents that are close by on the northern end as you have on the southern end. And you have a lot more stop signs that cause people to slow down. I've observed people, even since this accident on West I Street, just below the stop sign on Birch and West I, and the same down on Cardoza. So it's a pretty good speed thoroughfare for people once they leave Pacheco Boulevard to just continue on and do whatever they want. And it's unfortunate that someone had to lose their life for someone who decided that high speed was their choice along I Street, and to take out a life, 5 vehicles, and someone in that vehicle that was being driven was ejected. So again, what I'm asking for is for this to be brought back to make it more equitable for people who live on collector streets, who have property that is facing the road, to be able to have access to apply for these speed cushions. In the new designs that we do now on collectors, all these homes generally face fencing or masonry walls. So they're not subject to this kind of activity. So that's kind of my plea to the council, is to have this brought back to us for reconsideration and some adjustments, so that people who live in these areas have the opportunity to apply for speed cushion relief and to slow traffic down on their streets. That's it, Mr. Mayor. You're on mute, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry. Well, thank you, Mrs. Lewis, for the explanation. So the motion before you tonight is whether we are going to bring back this request for additional consideration and require staff to research. So I'm just going to ask a simple question, and we'll vote on this now. And Mr. Free, are you in favor of bringing this back?
Yes.
Okay, Mrs. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
And I'm also in favor of bringing this back. So we'll direct staff to prepare a report, and when they are ready, please bring this back to us for with additional information. Okay, let's go on to item 14, COVID-19. Thank you, Mrs. Lewis, for bringing that forward. Let's go on to item 14, COVID-19 status update. Chief Hurley.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Tonight I'm going to bring you just our normal meeting, our normal update regarding the our COVID pandemic. As you are aware, our lives have been affected by this, and we just want to make sure people are aware of some of the resources and current stats. The update from today came out this afternoon from the county as of 3:30. Merced County has 9,415 confirmed cases. That's 29 cases from additional cases as from yesterday. Approximately 304 of those cases are active, and unfortunately, 154 of those cases are where people have passed away. In California, just in regards to the California pandemic, 877,784 cases have been confirmed, and 17,027 deaths have occurred from COVID. Some of the numbers within our county. From today's update, we confirmed cases I talked about over 9,000. Las Banos is 1,190 cases. That is up from yesterday. Merced is at a 3,420, Atwater 1,360, and then Livingston is 937. And the other jurisdictions within the county are also on the county website on the dashboard, but these are the four higher numbers and the higher numbers within the county. I would have to say that per the 100,000 residents, Las Banos is by far the lowest per 1,000 at 29.7, where in comparison to the other jurisdiction, the highest is actually Livingston, which is 65%, 65 out of 1,000. So Las Banos has done really well by maintaining and protecting ourselves, and I encourage us to continue to do that. We talked about the tier earlier. It came up earlier in regards to our tier, which we were recently changed to the red tier from the purple, which gave us a little more businesses, a little more opportunity to change some of their practices with restrictions. In the original update today, it said that it had gone from 4% to 6.9%. But I did receive an update during this meeting that was misinformation, and we are still at the 4%. And a very important part of this whole pandemic and dealing with it is our testing sites. And I'm happy to say that Las Banos has a couple testing sites that are very active. I have spoken with both the sites, both the Golden Valley Health Center that is at the community center. They are very appreciative of that site. They have good turnout. When they first opened up, they were receiving a few more people coming in for tests, but they are still very happy with the numbers of people coming, and they actually say that it is one of the better sites, and they're very happy and don't plan on at this point removing themselves from the site. The other site in Las Banos is the Verily site that is at the Las Banos Fairgrounds at 403 F Street. This site has made a few modifications. They started out a few months back doing Mondays and Tuesdays. As of the end of last month, they switched from Mondays and Tuesdays to Tuesdays and Thursdays. I think it's and from talking to county representatives today from Public Health, they did that to try to encourage more participation, and it sounds like they've been doing really well, and there's been much more people using it as a resource. So currently, Las Banos has a testing site Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. the entire week. So that benefits us. I encourage people to be tested. I encourage to not be afraid of doing it. It is a great way of mitigating the spread and making sure that we protect each other. I do want to remind you. What happened? Can you hear me? I'm always having something. I do want to say that, let's remember, the symptoms of COVID regarding it's a respiratory illness. It will fever, cough, difficulty breathing, repeating shaking and chills, muscle pain, headache, sore throat, loss of taste or smell. If these symptoms develop, protect yourself and protect others with that and limit your exposures to others. Please remember to continue to do the things that we do to protect ourselves and others, to mitigate and protect and reduce the spread by washing your hands regularly with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. Avoid touching your eyes and nose and mouth. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Stay away from work or school or other people if you become sick with respiratory symptoms such as a fever or cough. Cover your sneezes, coughs with tissue and throw the tissues in the trash. And lastly, one of the things to do it along with everyone being is to wear the face coverings in public or when you cannot have the social distancing. The county website has a lot of good information. I want people to use that site. It has links, ways to help yourself, your children, dealing with stress and all the different things that we deal with COVID. Please look at that Merced County website. It has great information on it, as well as the City of Los Banos website. So, a couple other things I want to bring up. I talked about the testing sites. I talked a little bit about the tier, and we're still sitting at the number at four within the last 7 days. So that is good. It's positive, and hopefully, as we continue, we'll be able to even move to the next tier. I want to thank Chief Breezy for putting out on the police department Facebook page some information, some guidelines, some suggestions regarding dealing with our upcoming Halloween events. Please take a look at that. It has some great information that he received from state guidelines in regarding protecting yourselves, your children, and the community during this pandemic. So it has some really good information in there. And then lastly, as we move into the flu and cold season, it's a respiratory illness. So protect yourselves with that. Please remember the same things we do to protect ourselves from COVID. It will protect yourself from the flu. And also, if you're able to get a flu shot, if that's something you are interested in, please look into it. The Sutter Health Memorial Hospital has a flu shot clinic coming up on October 30th. They've had two previous from this, from 8 o'clock till dark, and that's going to be at the hospital, 520 West I, on October 30th. So that's a resource for people to be able to get their flu shots and to protect themselves from that as well. Other than that, I'm open for questions or comments, but I thank you for the time, and that's the end of my report.
Well, Mason, thank you so much. And that was a detailed report. And I hope people go to the police department website for the suggestions and what should be done during Halloween. The reports that we get, the additional reports that the city manager and I get in reference to the people who have died in the city of Los Banos. There are 9 people within the city limits of the city of Los Banos that have perished from COVID-19, and 11 total. That means 2 additional, not 11 more, 2 additional that have died in the 93635 area code. So for the 93635 area code, it is 11 people total, with 9 of those within the city limits of Los Banos. And you are so correct. We have the lowest infection rate per 1,000, and that is because of the procedures that we put in place early, and it has paid off. I know citizens were upset with this council because of it, and they let us know loud and clear. But it did have an effect, and we are the lowest infection rate in the county. So that's very good to hear. But please continue to direct people to the website as far as adhering to procedures for Halloween, and thank you again for that detailed report. So if is there any other council member who would like to make a comment about or any questions about Chief Hurley's report? Mr. Faria? Okay. Mrs. Santos?
No, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Jones?
Yes, Chief Hurley, is there any statistics on those numbers as far as the people that test positive, as far as if they're active users of PPE, and then if they do test positive, how many more tests thereafter of the same person that tests positive is there usually on average until they test negative?
I could tell you that I can't give you regarding the use of the PPE, but what I can tell you that people that do test positive, they can test positive well beyond their contagious limits, and the virus will break down and still result in positive tests. Working with the county, they have guidelines, and you actually will get into a position where you have 10 after being test positive, you have 10 consecutive days, 10 days in quarantine or those symptoms, and then as long as 72 hours of symptom free. At that point, the county is saying that you are no longer contagious, even though you still may get a positive test. So working and communicating with the county is extremely important. If anyone, I was going to bring it up, if anyone has questions like this, please bring them to me. I have daily conversations with public health, just my own questions on stuff. I'm more than happy to pass that information on and try to get answers for you if anyone asks them. So I definitely could see about the stats regarding those that are tested if in regards to the using of the mask for social distancing and what they were doing. A lot of it is being, there have been issues with a lot of it early on was the families, family networks of people being in the same household that were causing positive rates to increase. But currently, where that sits, I'll try to get more information for you if you like.
Okay, another question. So after the 10 days, are they tested again?
They can be tested again, but it's really under the direction because they get to go through the process and communicating and I can't think of the word right now, but the testing or figuring out in regards to who they contact tracing. I'm sorry, but they can be say that once you go those 10 days and you no longer have symptoms for 72 hours, you don't necessarily need to have a test to be cleared by the county. That now per different agencies and businesses, that would be their own criteria in regards to this. But the county could say you are no longer contagious if you go the 10 consecutive days after your positive test and 72 hours, 3 days with symptom free. That's symptom free without taking medications, obviously.
Okay, so if someone does test positive a second time, is that counted as a new case?
I don't believe so. No, if they're tested, they are the case for that county. That's a question I can ask, but I would pretty much, I would think that would not be the case for a single individual.
And just to confirm, there is no questionnaire when they do have these tests on if they're avid wearers of face masks or face shields.
I have never heard any stats like regarding that, but I will ask that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mrs. Lewis, any comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, of the stats that you and the city manager have received on the 11 deaths in Los Banos, did they give you the age categories?
I don't have them right in front of me, but I'm just going to tell you that the majority of them are over the age of 65.
Okay, thank you.
And that would hold true for the majority of the ones throughout the county. Alex, do you want to? You remember a little more than I do?
I don't have that, but let me make sure. Okay, I'm not muted. I will see if I can find that information and pass it on to the council.
You know, I have that, Mrs. Lewis, and both of us have it. I just don't have it in front of me, but I believe it was over the age of 65, and 55, 65 were the highest categories. So I will confirm that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and I have no additional questions. Chief Hurley, thank you for the report, and let us know if you have anything else in either emails or any type of communication you need for the council. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Item number 15, advisement of public notices. There are no reports tonight, and we're going to go on to item 16, city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. We heard a couple comments today about Mr. Fachin's upcoming retirement. First of all, congratulations to you, Mark. I know you're going to be around for a couple more months, and it's been a pleasure working with you. Looking forward to the next couple of months. I did mention to Mark I would be making one comment related to the Public Works Director's position, but I didn't tell him I was going to talk about his retirement. But it's been a pleasure working with Mark. I know I threw a lot at you, Mark, in the time I've been here. You've taken on some significant projects in the time I've been here and moved those projects forward significantly. So thank you, Mark, for that. It's been a pleasure working with you the last couple months. We have retained the services of an executive recruiting firm to fill the Public Works Director, City Engineer position. We are in the process of developing a profile for the ideal candidate to fill that position. This is a important position for the city, which is why we've retained the services of an executive recruiter. I think I may have mentioned it in my weekly notes. I think I did. But I do want to extend the opportunity to you as the council and the mayor. If you have an interest in speaking with the recruiter that's developing that profile, let me know. We will connect you with that recruiter so you can have some input into that process. It's an important position. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of the process and extend the invitation to you to help us develop that profile if you're interested. So let me know if you'd like to do that, and we'll connect you with that recruiter who's developing that profile and doing that recruitment for the city. Other than that, Mayor, I don't have anything else. So thanks, Mark. Sorry to put you on the spot, Mark, but thank you.
Oh, well, thank you, Alex. And council members, if you want to connect with the recruiter, please go through Alex. And if you have any questions for the next Public Works Director, let's make sure you get those in and you have your ability to ask those questions or to meet with the recruiter itself. So council members, please go through the city manager if you would like to do that. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, it's on to item 17, reportable update, Merced County Association of Governments, MCAG, Measure V Committee. Well, the only things that I have tonight are basically the same things I've been talking about. We're talking about that we have the money for the tipping fee study because it wasn't equitable throughout the county. So I put that on the agenda. That is approved. And then when we get that information back, hopefully MCAG will right the wrong and all the tipping fees will be the same throughout the county. Also, the commuter study is in full swing, and we are working on that study to see if there is interest on the west side of having some kind of commuter bus go to the Bay Area and then hooking up with light rail or busing so we can reduce vehicle miles traveled And if that does, it also gives us air unit credits and vehicle miles traveled because we're reducing the people on the roads. Also, we are working on the stoplight at 11th Street. That is going to be installed. They're carrying out the Hawk system, which I think works great. But now they'll put a full light in there within the next year. And also the synchronization of the stoplights through CMAQ money. And that's going to be a real help to the citizens of Los Banos, because now, depending upon the traffic flow, Caltrans will then be able to press a button and recalculate all the syncing of the lights depending upon the traffic flow at a certain time of day, if I understand this correctly. So they're going to be synchronizing the number, at least 11 of them. And so it's really going to be a benefit to the citizens of Los Banos. And also the 152 with the improvements on 152, and also the Pioneer Trail. So the next mayor, city council members, please make sure that they are pressed continuously with these items, because if they are put on the back burner by your representative, the mayor, then I will tell you right now, they will not move forward. So what I'm going to do is I'll talk about it in my mayor comments or my council member comments. So I don't want to go into that because that's not part of MCAG. But the MCAG project, they are continuing forward, and they will be past my time as mayor. So these have to be on the front burner all the time, or they will not be. So that's what I have tonight on MCAG, Association of Governments. And let's go. Are there any questions on item 17? Any brief comments? Okay, thank you. All right, let's go on to item 18, City Council member reports. And tonight we'll start with Mr. Faria. Go ahead, Mr. Faria.
Thank you, Mayor. Be interesting to see, I guess I could have made the comment on 17, but the only comment I have is it'll be interesting to see if that light timing situation will be hooked up to the 911 situation, the 911 system, which is what they had in Tracy when I was there, so that when emergency vehicles are coming through, all the lights turn green for the emergency vehicles, or turn red, whatever it is, to turn red for the emergency vehicles and get through and shut down the rest of the traffic. And I don't know if that's part of the plan, Caltrans plan, but it seemed to work pretty well in Tracy.
Fire department has that ability now. And okay. And so they have that ability. If Mason can further elaborate on that, but I believe...
Mr. Mayor, I would suggest we not elaborate.
Oh, okay. Okay, we have that ability, I think, Mr. Faria.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And that's all I have to say to me.
Thank you, Mr. Faria. Okay, let's go on to Mrs. Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to make a quick comment about some of the items on today's agenda, and want the residents to know that I believe as a council, we all thoroughly think through all of these items, and we try to do what we think is in the best interest for the city. So I just want residents to know that. I also want to say congratulations to Mark. It'll be sad to see you go, but I'll be gone before you will. So, yeah, I guess that's it for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's go on to Mr. Jones.
No report tonight, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mrs. Lewis.
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate the police department on, passing of the ordinance tonight to fund the building of our new police building. I'm looking forward to it, and I know they are. They've been in that building like sardines in a can for a very long time, so I'm really happy for them. And for Veronica, just in case I forget at the next meeting, since you think it might be your last meeting, you never know. But I don't know. Let's see. Can I get this in the camera? When we went to the League of Cities, we had they have different events that they put on, and Veronica and I were with two council members from Fresno, and we were dressed up for the Mardi Gras season. And then this one at the top was at the 2008 National Night Out, where the police had a booth, and we went in there together and shot a picture. So they were in my desk. I still have them, and it was a time.
You're gonna make me cry. You're gonna make me cry.
Veronica and I had, when we arrived, we went straight to a restaurant and walked and had breakfast, and it was a time where we had an opportunity to get to know each other. So I'm going to save these pictures forever and remember the good times. So that's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Veronica.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to be reserving my comments for Mr. Fachin at our last meeting. So I think it's going to be appropriate because I have a lot to say about this man who has done just a wonderful job for the city of Los Banos, but I will elaborate on it at that time. Mrs. Lewis, I did find the stats for you, and these are back when there were 145 deaths in the county. And right now, I think there's 152 or 154. And so this is the most current one that I have, and I can ask the person in charge to update the stats. But of the 145 at that time, there were 96 deaths of people 65 and over out of the 142, and the 65 plus range. And then the next category was 38 deaths, and those were 55 to 64. And 35 to 49, there were 11. So the stats confirm what we've been hearing nationally. And the older you are, the more chance you have of acquiring COVID-19 and not surviving it. So again, 96 people of the 145 at that time. And this report was 10-1. And so that's almost what, 21 days ago. And now we've had, thank God, we haven't had that many more deaths, but the numbers will be just a little slightly different from what I just quoted you. Alex, do we have any information on the B Street light for the new school? Do you have any timelines on that?
I don't, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Mark, do you have any information on that?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, they actually had a pre-construction meeting today that our inspector attended. So they're going to be starting that project right away. There is a good 2.5 to 3 month wait to get the standards. So at least it started today, but the signals do take a while to order. So, but the kickoff meeting was today.
Thank you. Thank you. I was asked this question the other day and I just didn't have an answer for him. So actually the question was asked of a school board member, and so I will get that information to her. Thank you, Mr. Pigeon. Okay. Oh, good. So with that, if there are no additional comments, I would now at this time like to adjourn the meeting at 6:51 p.m. And one parting comment, it's just such a pleasure to work with this council. So I'll leave it at that, and staff. So with that, I'll adjourn the meeting at 6:51. Good night, everyone.
Night, everyone.